Life of Art. I'm Czaana Saxena, and thank you so much for joining. So today with me, I have a really, really special and unique and amazing guest, all the way from USA. We have Mr. B Mark Seabrooks. Um, he is the definition of versatility in the arts industry. He does a lot of things. I probably can't name all, but he's he's a writer, producer. He works in live theater, comedy, TVs. He has pitched and written and sold shows to Disney and HBO and Fox and ABC News. And on top of all of this, he also teaches younger people how to navigate their way in the film industry or, in show business in general, which is really, really important. So, hello, Mr. Seabrooks. Thank you so much for coming.
Hi, thank you for having me. Really quick, not ABC News. ABC, I've worked with ABC. I've never worked with ABC News, though. But
okay. My bad. Yeah.
No worries.
Thank you. So is it could you tell us more about yourself? More about the work you've done?
Yeah, born and raised in a place called Louisville, Kentucky. Been a theater kid. I started theater pretty much like 13, 14, 15. With a company called Walden Theater. Okay. My classmate was turned into a very famous singer-songwriter named Bonnie Prince Billy. There's a song performed by Johnny Cash on his last album called I See a Darkness. And it was written by this kid named Bonnie. Well, he's not a kid anymore. But it was written by Bonnie Billy, Will Oldham, who I went to theater school with. And then I went to Howard University, via Central State University, then Howard University. Studied there with a very famous acting teacher by the name of Vera Katz, a very famous playwright by the name of Joseph P. Walker, a filmmaker named Haile Garima. And I ended up going to Hollywood via the generosity of Eddie Murphy. He gave me a start in my career. I was able to sit at the feet of such legends as Gene Roddenberry and Michael Piller. I wrote jokes for Red Fox. Rest his soul, rest many of their souls. And I was just lucky enough during what was considered the New Jack film movement, which was a period in Hollywood where, after MTV and exploded, and there was sort of new voices and new images, and artists such as NWA, and Eazy-E through just sheer entrepreneurship and hustle began an explosion of Black creativity and art. Yeah. So that began sort of the, post-MTV, New Jack film movement. Spike Lee and Robert Townsend, with their hustle of making films off of credit cards, created an opening for young Black filmmakers and storytellers in the early 90s. Even though, he did what he did and he, his history is what it is. Bill Cosby's The Cosby Show and A Different World made who we were, young Black people, educated, articulate. It gave us an opportunity to arrive in Hollywood and be seen in a way that was very different than how we had been perceived and how we had been treated before. Yeah. So, I pretty much go from waiting tables in Washington, D.C., slinging pizza, to, sitting in Eddie Murphy's office watching a Mike Tyson fight with, the creme de la creme of Black Hollywood, and hanging out with John Singleton at functions, before Boys in the Hood even came out.
Huge change.
And that was in like the early 90s. And that led to me working with Red Fox. I worked with Michael Piller, who was the executive producer of Star Trek, and Jerry Taylor, some giants of sci-fi television. Ira Stephen Bear and Ron Moore. Joe, I think it's Joe Manowski, was that Joe's last name? But I got to sit and hang out with some really talented, science fiction writers. And I also had an opportunity to just work with some very well-known and very creative comedy people. Not that he's a friend or that I like him now, but, people like Bill Maher. There was an amazing woman, amazing, funny, talented woman named Maggie Rowe. But just sort of like, just comedy royalty. I hung out with a lot of comedy royalty in LA. Eddie Griffith, met, Eddie Griffith, the Wayans, Cedric the Entertainer, Steve Harvey. I wasn't a comedian. I was a television writer, and my background was in theater.
Yeah.
And I didn't really necessarily see myself as a comic, or I didn't sort of embrace that particular lifestyle. I wanted to be behind the cameras and a filmmaker. I didn't want that. But I did all of that. I sold shows to HBO, again, to Disney Channel, before it became Disney Plus.
Oh, yeah.
And I did work with Mike Epps. And then about 2007, 2008, because I came to California in 1990. By 2007, I don't think I ever really took a vacation.
Oh, wow.
I never took a vacation. I went for me, a vacation meant jumping in the car, taking the kids to Disneyland, and then coming back. So I never went on holiday.
But I mean, you enjoyed your work a lot, right? So, I mean, would you consider it your dream job? Because you told me that your dream was to work in theater, like writing and all of that, so.
I loved my job. I took great pride in being a workaholic. I took great pride in being a workaholic. That is not healthy, nor is it sustainable.
Okay.
And the way that I was raised and the way that I was brought up, I was told that as a Black man, you always have to work 4 times as hard as the next person, period. You have,
Yeah.
But you don't do self-care. You don't take care of yourself. You take care of everybody else, but you don't take care of yourself. You just do what it is that you have to do. And you just have to deal with whatever, comes your way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I loved being creative. The business and the culture it's not the healthiest at all. In fact, it could be pretty toxic. It could be, it's interesting because I came up in a time and an era when it was weird. I came up in a time and an era where literally I'm sitting in Eddie Murphy's office and I'm talking to Bob Weinstein, right? About how much I love the Weinstein, I love their movies. right? And you're surrounded in this culture that is go, 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 alpha male, alpha male, seize the day, conquer all, take everything. I remember telling somebody, it's hard not to think that you're living an entourage lifestyle when you're literally walking past the set of Entourage, right? It's like when you're in the middle of a world where you're watching Entourage and you're walking past Vinny Chase's car on set, it's kind of hard to separate reality from your reality. And it's not helping.
And I guess it's also because, okay, there's a lot of pressure as well, because once you're out there, then people, know of you, and then they just expect more and more and more and more. And so there's pressure from, your fans or the people who are fans of the shows, and then there's people from, like, pressure from the people working in the shows. So there's just a lot of expectations, I guess. Is that?
I think there's a lot of expectations.
Yeah.
I think that, to me, the story that really sort of resonates the most about Hollywood and what Hollywood is like is the story of Pinocchio.
Oh, okay.
Pinocchio feels a lot like Hollywood to me.
Why?
Because it's about a kid that's born with a head full of nothing, that's loved by his family. His family only wants what's best for him. He goes out into a world with a head full of nothing, and then he runs into hustlers who put stars in his eyes and tell him all of these wonderful things.
Yeah.
And then he goes into it and he's trapped, right? And then he has to rely on the divine, the blue fairy. He has to rely on the divine to save him, right? Even when he comes up against the divine, he lies to it.
Yeah.
You see young children that are eager to grow up too fast, right?
Yeah.
They're like shooting pool, smoking and drinking, right? But while they're doing that, people behind them are literally selling them, trafficking them. Pinocchio is a deep-ass movie, if you think about it, and it is very much like the culture of Hollywood.
Okay, so you said that Pinocchio is a deep movie, and okay, I'm asking you because you have worked and in this industry, and you have written plays, written for TV shows and things like that. Okay, art in general, any kind of art, there's a bunch of layers, right? It's not exactly what it's not very clear, and you have to read between the lines and things like that. So, what would you say is like the best way that you can express yourself, and how do you come up with those kind of stories?
I say that the first thing that you have to do is look. I'm 58, and you're just starting out. So I know my expectation or my brain tells me that I'm going to say a lot of adult things that may not be able to grasp. I think that as a young person, we're born into a world that's filled with insecurity. And I think that we're constantly looking to fit in and become a part of, and to be popular, and to be beautiful, and to be accepted. I think that due to the way that the world works, the impact of colonialism, the impact of the global marginalization of women, and the use of women as property, as vessels to create more men, as to conquer. I think that that it has created globally ideas around beauty and agency and advocacy for women, that agency and advocacy for women is often dismissed. And I think it makes it very, very hard for young people to get centered in self. I think that young people have to get centered in self first.
Yeah.
Learn how to accept self first and then gain strength from that. Because if you don't have that, it doesn't matter how talented you are.
Self-identity.
It doesn't matter how much money you make.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many people love you. It doesn't matter how many fans you have. None of that matters. You will get used. You will get manipulated. You will not have happiness. You will not have prosperity.
Yeah.
And so, first and foremost, young people have to learn how to get grounded and accept self. Then all of those other things, because if there's a rapid conversation around what it takes to get successful, and it's all really noise, because the moment you think that you figured it out, technology and trends will change so rapidly that you'll find yourself on the edge of something brand new and you're doing it all over again and you're still lost.
How do you deal with things changing? How do you deal with trends changing and what viewers want always changing?
You have to learn deeper.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
As in, like, you need to know. I mean, could you elaborate?
Okay, good. I'm glad that you said, yeah. You have to learn deeper. It's like in the military, right? A general isn't present or necessarily that focused on the war that's going on now. A general has deep and profound knowledge of all the wars that have gone on before.
Yeah.
So by the time they're present to the war that they're fighting, they are a living computer of understanding and calm in the face of what they have to take on so that they can handle it appropriately. Young artists are always talking about the now. They're always talking about how they're going to jump on it and get it now and do it now. And like I said, by the time they figure that out, things have changed, and then they're back to trying to figure it out again. And you can spend like the next 20, 30 years attempting to figure it out.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, what stories are important to you?
Okay.
What do you want to say? Who are the writers? Who are the storytellers? Not even the filmmakers, because filmmaking is a very different animal. And very few filmmakers, very, 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 very few filmmakers ever actually get their actual voice.
Okay.
I think that if you want to sort of explore your actual voice, don't worry about MediaCorp. Don't worry about what they want or what ABC wants or what Disney or take your camera, and make it for yourself, and don't worry about a global audience.
Yeah.
Create a small audience. Find your true voice. Talk about it the way that you want to talk about it. But I think that your knowledge and your storytelling, it can be sourced from you, because emotionally, what you do, what you write will be sourced from you and your experience. But the depth and breadth of your understanding of the subject matter should come from a variety of the storytellers who deal with the same realities and issues and subject matter that you are looking to explore in your journey.
Okay. Thank you for that. So, you started theater when you were what, 13, 14, 15?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Like, why did you choose theater or arts?
Sidney Poitier
Huh?
and Sammy Davis Jr.
Okay.
Because when I was a kid, literally, I would be outside and people would run outside and they would say, "Come here, there's somebody black on TV."
Wow.
Because we didn't get to see black on. When one of my first memories is kissing my mother's tears away when Martin Luther King was murdered. That's like one of my earliest memories. So that's kind of the world that I come from, right? So when I was a kid, I would see Sidney Poitier in the Defiant Ones, because there used to be a television, like where I grew up, movies used to come on like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And every once in a while, they would play a black movie. And the black movies they would play would be the Defiant Ones with Sidney Poitier and Tony Curtis, or Lilies in the Valley with Sidney Poitier and some nuns, or A Patch of Blue with Sidney Poitier and Shelley Winters,
Yeah.
or Imitation of Life, which was about a black girl who looked white, who passed for a black girl who looked white, who was passing, but she had a black mother and she rejected her black mother until the black mother dies.
Yeah.
So those were the movies that I grew up watching. And I think that watching Sidney Poitier and Sammy Davis Jr. being sort of like the only sort of embraced kind of black men in my society, other than Muhammad Ali, because I grew up in Muhammad Ali's neighborhood.
Yeah.
I was born and raised in West End, Louisville. So, and I wasn't a boxer, right? So I knew I would never be a boxer. I was fat. I was a wrestler, right? And wrestling was fake on television, right? So it was acting, and so I just sort of gravitated towards acting, and that just landed me in theater.
Okay. So, okay, kind of elephant in the room question. Did you face any challenges as a black person in the
Of
industry?
course,
Like?
I still do.
Oh,
Yeah,
could you elaborate
yeah.
on that?
Well, like it's so funny. I was born at the end of the official Jim Crow era,
Okay.
right? When my mother was pregnant with me, I think there was a riot. There was a riot when my mother was pregnant with me, right? There was a major riot, in Louisville when, like I said, I'm kissing the tears off my mother's cheek when Martin Luther King was killed.
Yeah.
I went to school during a period called enforced school busing.
Okay.
So I went from an all-black sort of, Louisville's pretty kind of segregated. So I went from like an all-black neighborhood to a white neighborhood. I, N-word jokes by teachers, N-word jokes by white students. I got bullied by white students. When I was in middle school, Roots came on, so I was called Kunta Kinte every day, all day long. I had classmates who bragged about their family members being in the Ku Klux Klan. I've had money stolen, jobs denied. I remember being cornered. I was in a bar. I mean, when I went to college in DC, I remember being cornered in a bar in Georgetown by some white boys asking me what I was doing in the bar.
Yeah.
Fights, had my head pushed down on a railroad track. I remember 7th grade, there was a race riot. There was a race riot in my middle school. I had to get escorted off the bus. Fellow students chanting, N-word, go home, N-word, go home.
Were you denied jobs in the arts industry as well? Were you denied, jobs and opportunities in the film industry?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's yeah. yeah. I mean, it's like racism is everywhere. I mean, it's like in some jobs that I had to like hold my tongue and and sort of just like bite my tongue by things that were being said and things that were being done. However, what's interesting? The irony of it is that we tend to segregate our oppression, meaning I could see what oppression looked and felt like as a Black man. Meanwhile, I'm sitting right next to white women or women, and I'm oblivious to what's going on with them.
Yeah.
Right? I'm oblivious to, a similar oppression that's going on to them, for them. But yeah, I definitely saw and experienced that.
And do you still face it, or has it reduced? Because racism has reduced. Has, the implied racism reduced for you?
Earlier this morning, before I logged on, I watched another video of a teenage Black boy being shot and killed by a cop, unarmed. Like not today, but maybe yesterday, day before yesterday.
Yeah.
I walked through LA streets after George Floyd's was killed, with cars literally engulfed in flames, attempting to go to, a meeting that I couldn't go to because it got canceled, not only because of that, but because of COVID, right? Because of, the political circumstance. I remember being in Singapore, just sitting at Food Opera and having people come and just sit next to me and like saying, you only voted for, like, just completely out of the blue, you only voted for Obama because he's Black, So it's like, it's just sort of this thing that it can be, it is kind of a constant that you often have to contend with. I mean, it's like you keep moving, you keep going through it, you keep dealing with it. But it's like I told a friend, I said that you and I will never know what a parking garage at 2:00 in the morning means to a woman by herself.
Yeah, true.
And in that way, there are people that will never know what our parking garage is, right? And like, if there is an environment where you find yourself in that is a persistent and constant parking garage at 2:00 in the morning that we just deal with, but for other people, it's just a parking garage.
So yeah, I guess it never will fully go away, because it's a constant thing, Racism is everyone's so used to it, and it's obviously very difficult to understand the challenges or the struggles that somebody else will have. I mean, that's close to impossible.
I think that artists, like when I look at the writings of playwrights like Chekhov, that was an artist that thought he could change something.
Yeah.
Like Anton Chekhov, or who's the other Russian writer? I'm old, and so it's slipping my mind. But like when I read them, when I read them younger, it didn't land how deep they were. Yeah. But older, you read it, and it's like, okay, these are artists who thought that they can really change things.
Yeah.
To me, that's the purpose of art, and that's the real point of art. I think that art has gotten caught up in celebrity, glitz, glamour, and the trauma of European acceptance that I think that Black folk and brown folk oftentimes are saddled with. I think that we miss out on how brilliant and amazing we can be because we want to be a part of European fashion houses like Fendi,
Yeah.
Balenciaga, or whatever right. We want to be. It's not good enough to be cool in an Alginate. We got to be on Orchard Road.
Yeah,
Right. It's like
I completely agree. I mean, art is meant to be a way to express yourself, a way to, you know, show your opinions to other people and to influence whatever you feel to people around you. But then it's gotten so far from that. It's changed a lot.
I think that the way that I define um, uh, God for me, I don't. The way is I define God as energy, courage, action, compassion, truth, wisdom.
Yeah.
That to me is God. And if we as human beings and as artists are able to apply all of those principles to how we look at one another, how we interact with one another, and if we're able to get deep and centered in ourselves and tell our truth, then I think that the possibility is that we can reduce the carbon footprint of division, discrimination, sexual violence towards women, sexual violence towards children. And I think that, but I think that artists have to be very, very brave and courageous. And I think that it's hard to be brave and courageous and want to go to the Met Gala at the same time.
Yeah, I get that. So you've met a lot of people while you're in the industry. So who's been the most influential and inspiring person to you that has had the biggest impact on your life?
Individuals who have just shown real compassion.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, I don't look at people as, I got people that are very famous in my family. I got people that are very wealthy in my family. I don't look at that as success. I mean, I get that that's success.
Yeah. It isn't the only thing that makes someone successful.
I think that it doesn't connect humanity. I think, honestly, I was once in a house that was a $44 million house.
Oh, wow.
In LA. I was invited to a function that was being held at this house, and it was the house of a famous soap actress, like daytime soap star.
Yeah.
And her husband. And it was 3 levels. There was a part of the house you literally had to get in almost like an all-terrain vehicle golf cart, and you had to drive up this hill to where the massage part, and then you had to drive up to this other hill where they had this man-made swimming lake. It was like water. It had like a kayak in it. It had like these 3 different levels.
That's fancy.
And I looked at it, and I remember it was like there was like these steep steps at one point. And I thought, man, if you fell on those steps, right, and got hurt, no one in your house will be able to see or hear you, right? And it's like there's mountain lions, and it's like, and then it's like, what happens to the joy of having just a normal house, and you can talk to the dad or the mom that lives next door and say, wow, your kids are really growing up.
Yeah.
Wow, how's your son doing? How's your daughter doing? Right? It's like, oh, you need me to help you and do this, right? I think one of the most blessed moments of my life. I remember I was like, working. It was like 3 a.m. I was sitting in my office in the house I used to own, and I'm working, and then my phone rings, right? And I pick it up. I go, hello? And it's my neighbor, this dude named Brian. He says, AB. And I said, I'm on my way. And I jumped, got my clothes on, and went to his house because I knew if he's calling me at 3 a.m,
It's an emergency.
it's an emergency. White guy, right? He had 2 daughters, and his wife was sick, and he had to take her to the hospital. He
Yeah.
says, I need you to sit with my kids. I was like, I'm here for you. That to me is what's important in life and in the world we live. And, award shows and like, oh, yeah, it's okay, cool. It's cool you get to represent your culture. Beautiful, perfect, wonderful, right? Do you have peace in your community?
Yeah, because some people view success as only fame or only money because it's easy to count and things like that. But then success is also in community, in relationships,
And life.
Yeah, it's not just
Yeah.
money, but people don't get that, which is sad. Sad truth of reality. Okay. I kind of believe in younger self conversations where, you give advice or you talk to your younger self. Do you do that too? And like if you do, then what would you tell your younger self? Is there anything?
Love myself more.
Yeah.
Believe in myself more, love myself more. And when I'm doing something that I know that is hard, don't talk myself out of it when it's for my own benefit.
And is that advice you'd give to like other young people as well?
If they listen.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the trick of youth, right? That's the old saying: youth is wasted on the young, right? It's really, like I said, Pinocchio, right? Pinocchio was given great advice multiple times, right? And so so I would absolutely give that advice, to young people. I would say read a lot, and I would say read a lot and write a lot.
Whether you release it or not, I think writing is it's nice to do that. Whether it is given to the public or not, it's a nice thing to do.
I'm glad.
So, last question I have for you is imagine me to be imagine me to be an amazing and super experienced interviewer. What question would you like me to ask you?
I just think it's so much about the question. It's about the listening.
Yeah.
What I would ask is that you as an interviewer, and you're a great interviewer, you did a great job.
Thank you.
What I would say is listen. There is an art and a skill to listening.
Yeah.
And I think that great interviewers listen.
Yeah.
Bad interviewers have questions prepared and they hit the questions.
Yeah.
Right? Great interviewers listen. So that's what I would say. It's also the most important note I would give to actors.
Yeah.
Listen. Learn how to listen.
Yeah. I think that's a challenge that I kind of faced when I was figuring out how to interview people, because even I'm like really, really new to this. And I was looking at a lot of interviews, and so there's two different kinds of interviews. One is where it's really scripted and I just, keep reading off questions. And then others is where I say I have a, broad list of questions. Not list, but I have a broad idea of what I want to understand about you. And then I just figure out how you are. And then I noticed that the first one is very unnatural. So I'm trying to do the second thing, where it's not a list of questions. So, yeah.
You just listened.
Yeah.
You heard what I said, you took it in, and you offered a response based on exactly what it is that I said.
Hmm?
You looked at your preparation for this. You evaluated what it was that I said in relationship to how you prepared, and then you offered a response based on that.
Yeah.
You're growing. You're 13. This is your first year as a teen.
Yeah.
This is your first year as a teen. You know, you're growing, and if acting is the music of human emotion,
Yeah.
listening as an actor is as important as hearing and listening is for a musician to play with other musicians.
Yeah.
So it's not even necessarily about, you know, what the notes that you are anticipating and expecting the sound to go. Because if something hits the singer a particular way in a particular moment, if the musician is listening, they will be able to follow that singer, right?
Yeah.
An actor prepares their lines in a particular way because they want to hit this or that or the other, right? Once they have that emotional and sense memory, they just need to let go and trust and listen to the other actor on stage. And if that actor is a connected actor and a real actor, right, then real magic happens in the rhythm and the sound of the emotion that occurs between them on stage.
Yeah.
Being a professional interviewer is almost like being a professional therapist, allowing the audience to come into the therapy room and sit on the couch and listen to the therapy session.
Yeah. Flea on the
But
wall, I think they call it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, the best therapists, they don't come in with answers. The best therapists come in with listening and questions in response to what it is that they're hearing,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Okay. This was, I mean, I learned a lot from this.
I'm glad.
Yeah. So, thank you for talking to me about this.
You're welcome. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you've learned and that you're processing from this?
Okay, so firstly, I mean, just on the base level, I've understood how the industry works on a certain level and how, you get into Hollywood and things like that. And then I'm also realizing that Hollywood isn't as, you know, sunshine and roses as it seems to be. And art is not just red carpets and Met Galas. And that there are many different kinds of things you can do. And also when you went to uni, you learned theater, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in theater itself, there is so much. So you produced and you did playwriting, you did a bunch of things. And then I'm learning theater too, and I'm hoping that I also sort of am able to, branch out and do a lot of these things. Because theater isn't just acting, it's a huge misconception. And I see you as I see you as somebody that I would, like. I want to be like you, kind of, so that's nice. Yeah.
Well, you're an amazing young person, and I know that you just being centered and being yourself is going to be a blessing and a boon to society and the world
Thank you.
and your parents.
Yeah.
Be a real blessing to them.
Thank you. And thank you so much for joining. And thank you everyone who watched this. I hope you learned something from Mr. Seabrooks. And I will leave any socials that I find of you in the description. Yeah.
Enjoy.
Thank you so
Have a
much
good
for
day.
watching. Thank you.
Bye bye.